Hi guys, it's Jill
Kirsten
from Loki and Friends, and today we're going to be talking about pros and cons. Are rats for you?
Pro, they're typically very affectionate, though we can't promise every single one of them is going to be, the happiest, but most of them are. Most of them enjoy seeing their human walk through the door. They climb on their bars and they'll give you little licks and kisses, and it's so adorable. It's just like any dog that greets you at the door, they just greet you at their cage door.
Cons, it's kind of hard to find a vet for them because not every vet hospital takes care of rats, so you have to kind of search around, and sometimes you have to travel farther than you probably would like to.
And it costs more.
Yeah, and it costs a little more.
They're technically like an exotic pet, so you have to figure out before you buy one and before they get sick, because you don't want it in a situation where they're really sick, like to the point of almost dying, and you have no idea where to take them.
Number two for pros are definitely comedic reliefs. I've found many times where I'm feeling down and I look over at them and they're always doing something funny, and they can always make me laugh if I'm feeling down.
Yeah, they're just like dogs. They're kind of dopey and they do really weird things. So a big con for a lot of people is their very short lifespan. Typically they only live about 3 years. They could live less and live longer, and depending on how they are, but nonetheless they'll never live as long as a dog. And you get attached to them. You really love them, and it's really hard to keep losing them so fast. So if that is a big deterrent, then if you get super attached and it's just too traumatic, then that is definitely something to consider.
I know after I've had rats before, and I know after you get attached to them basically as much as you would a dog or a cat, if not more, I found myself. And it's like losing a friend or a sibling, a child, anything when they go, and it can be very hard on people. Number three for pros is that they are typically trainable. Now this doesn't go for our rats exactly, but for a lot of rats they can be trained to do really cool tricks, and they can be trained to even just do some things that a dog would do.
Yeah, like fetch or come when their name is called. Even if they're not the brightest, they can be taught to do like very simple things. Like I know our rats, when we hit the bars, they all come running, or if we go, they come too. So they're very intelligent. You would think that they're not, but they are.
I'm almost convinced even that some of our rats know their name. So if we'll say like Tepin will pop her head up and be like, "Yo, food, treats."
Shemaya just responds to anything because she knows when they're talking to us, we're probably gonna get food. They're noisy when you're kind of wanting to sleep, or even when you're awake and trying to do something. They're just noisy little scamps. They like run around and chirp and whatever the heck they're doing. Their wheel could be very noisy, and that's just on you. You can replace it, but still. And there have been many nights where we have lost some sleep because they just would not quiet down at all. So if you're a very, very light sleeper, or if that's just something that will really, really get to you and just inhibit you, then that's something to consider. Maybe you could just have them in a different room. You could have them in the living room or something. If you don't have bigger pets that can obviously hurt them, it would.
Yeah, my recommendation, if you have a house with a bunch of rooms and you would mind committing one room to kind of the rats, I would do that, because I know if we had the space, we would definitely keep them in another room.
Yeah, but also with that, you just have to keep in mind you do have to interact with them, which is going to come up later.
Number four for pros, they're not as pricey as other animals like dogs and cats typically are.
Especially dogs.
Especially dogs. Yeah, dogs you can spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on sometimes.
Yeah.
And rats, I'm sure some breeder rats are much more expensive. They can be.
Even pet store rats are kind of expensive. I know I saw the last time at PetSmart they were like $13 each, and you need 2. So that's $26 for 2 rats. And then you have the cage, which is big. That's also the con we're talking about. That's what we're talking about, the negative. So they're not as expensive as a dog, they're not but they do require certain things that are non-negotiable. They need a decent cage, they need decent food, they need enrichment activities and bedding, and those add up. $13 for certain foods a month, depending on how much they eat. And then you have the bedding, which is like anywhere from $8 to $30.
Sometimes
more. So those are things that you need to keep in mind. Again, not as expensive as cats and dogs, but still.
I mean, while while you spend more probably on cats and dogs, you are still going to spend something. It's not going to be, you know, you spend it once and...
Yeah, that just comes with being a pet owner. Yeah. So just be realistic, that's all I'm saying.
Another nice thing is that usually, even if you have kind of a bigger cage for rats, they are compact. They don't require as much space and to roam around as much as like a dog or a cat. I mean, yeah, you can, you know, let them run around a room if they're able to do that and then come back. But usually even their cage just takes up a tiny spot. I mean,
vertically.
Yeah, vertically a tiny amount of space.
Typically rat cages, if you look around, they're more up than wide. And that could just be really easy. You could just put them there and they'll be fine. And also they're just smaller. They don't get in your way as you're moving as a dog. You know, you don't have to worry about stepping on them if you don't let them freely roam. So that's a good thing if you're like tight on space like us. We just share a room with 8 animals. So it can be crazy, but it's doable. Okay, another one is, I mentioned kind of previously, and that's one that you'll hear a lot, is you need to have at least 2 rats. And while that might not be a bother from other people, it might just be a deterrent for others, you know, if you're testing the waters, but it's an absolute necessity. Rats are very, very, very sociable, which is a very lovable quality, but that means that they also have to have a buddy. You know, you're at work, you're at school, you have a social life, you know, you don't have time to carry them around everywhere. So you need to have someone that they could just interact with.
They're definitely social. They're not like I know with mice and hamsters and stuff, they were okay with being alone. Like I never had trouble. I've always had like single mice and single hamsters, and they were completely fine. Like I think they preferred to be alone rather than play around with someone or have a buddy.
Yeah, so they're not like little fuzzy cute decor. They do need your attention.
They're definitely stress relievers. You know, you could be having a really stressful day and, you know, you just kind of need to chill out, and they're easy because they're not like, you know, with some dogs they kind of like go all over you and they're heavier, you know, especially, I mean, not small dogs, but, you know, it's, yeah, big dogs. If you have a dog like ours, that can add more stress. And these guys, you know, they'll just run around on your shoulder, they'll run down your legs, you know, we like to hold ours on our bed and they run all over the bed. We usually let the girls do that more because they come back if you call them. The boys won't. But yeah, so they're really nice stress relievers.
Like any other animal, but this time it's just in a cute little tiny package.
Yeah.
Sharp nails. It's not that they're mean. Some of them are scared and they can, and that's a different video we'll talk about, but I don't know if you can see that right here. You know, they have sharp little nails and sometimes they fall off and they hold on too tightly. And if you have very, very sensitive skin or get allergies a lot, it could be a very big deterrent. I mean, you don't want to get scratched up and itchy every time you do it. I'm kind of crazy and I don't care. But, you know, another solution for that could be wearing long sleeves and just making sure that they're supported and not flighty.
Yeah,
I would say. And
it also sucks when you have to give them baths, because I get shredded when I have to give the rats baths, and they'll try and climb out because they do not like baths, but they need them because they're so stinky. Some rats are like trained to like water, and ours just don't, and we just have to kind of get it over with as fast as we can. And they like try to jump out and they just claw my arms, and it's horrible. But you know, it happens, and they heal. You just put some Neosporin on, some band-aids, and there you go.
Another con is they're a little bit less restrictive when it comes to food. I mean, yes, they have their standard blocks and you need to have that as a part of their regular diet, but I mean, there's a lot of people that just have their rats on homemade mixes, you know, give them some various grains, a little bit of seeds, a little bit of fresh fruit and vegetables, and they're pretty much, they can live. I mean, you see them in the wild, they could basically eat anything. There is some things that they can't eat, you know, like chocolate or raw peanuts, but aside from that very short list, they could pretty much eat whatever.
They can live out of a garbage can, basically, and be okay.
Yeah, they just, you know, of course there's things, you know, you don't want to give them junk food every day, and you don't want to do this because they get overweight or this, but compared to, let's say, a dog, which the list is like up to here, or a cat,
they can't have.
Yeah, cat, you know, or even a gerbil, not gerbil, a guinea pig, I'm sure gerbils do, guinea pig and rabbits, you know, which are very, very plant-based. they can pretty much eat a lot of stuff, you know. If you run out of food, as long as you have, you know, something, they'll be okay. They'll be fine. They're pretty close to us.
Super easy to feed. Stigma? Oh, need attention.
That goes along with what we said before.
One thing they need that we've kind of mentioned earlier is that they need a lot of attention. They're not just, you can't just like leave them alone and they'll be okay. They need to be held at least once a day for like a good
chunk of time.
Yeah.
At least 30 minutes. At least that's what every book and every person that you talk to says, at least 30 minutes. Depending on the personality of rats. I mean, our boys, you know, they have a little bit and they're fine. You know, they're good. Girls, if they had it their way, they would live in our pockets.
Yeah.
They would never leave us. They would never be in their cages by themselves, and they would always be on us. And that just depends. That depends on, again, your rat. And you need to keep in mind that if you're just someone that wants, you know, like a fish type of pet, you know, feed them, look at them, they look cute and fun, and leave them alone, and that's not rats.
No,
that's not rats at all. You know, that's a pro for a lot of people, but that can be a lot of cons. You know, they get kind of destructive, and I know our girls, if you leave them alone too long, they'll bite on the bars. They're like, mommy, 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 mom, mom. You know, I'm trying to do my homework.
They get pretty distracting and kind of annoying sometimes.
Yes.
One nice thing as well is that they're easy to have travel with you or relocate. Like if you need to move their cage for any reason. I mean, depending on what kind of cage you have, you can either roll it into another room if it's one of those big one with rollers, or just pick it up and put it in another room. It's very, very, again, depending on what kind of cage you have. If you have like one of those homemade bookshelf ones,
that's harder, but
it could be harder.
Like, there's all kinds of, you know, for like if you're taking them to the vet, they have little carriers for them, and overall they're not as big and clunky. Or
you could use a shoebox if you
really not recommended, because especially for older rats, because they will tear that up. They will just be like, ha ha ha, funny, even. Ha ha ha. But overall, you know, just give them water and food and just enough space for them to move around. You know, you can take their big cage somewhere else. As long as they have that, they could go for a long time.
They'd be okay.
There's a lot of negative stigma, and that could just get in the way with social interactions, and just kind of like, if I wanted to take my rats, you know, not even let them loose, I would never let them loose in a park, but just to bring their cage and put them there and have them like smell, there would be a lot of people that just be like, oh my god,
and be freaking out.
Stay away, call people, they're not allowed to have it, and you know, they don't want to touch them. And these are pets. You love them and you want them to be social. I mean, our girls, they love people. They love them and really they want to be with them. And there's a lot of people that just don't.